It was the kind of job nobody wanted, but I needed it. The night shift at a sprawling, poorly lit warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was my first week, and though the hours dragged and the silence pressed down on me like a weight, the paycheck promised to make up for it. My tasks were simple: monitor the cameras, ensure everything remained secure, and occasionally do rounds to check the storage aisles. The warehouse was massive, aisle after aisle of stacked boxes that towered over me like silent sentinels. The dim, flickering fluorescent lights didn't help ease the eerie feeling of being alone in such a vast space. Even the air seemed to hum with an unnatural stillness, but I shrugged it off. It was just my imagination, or so I thought. One night around 2 a.m., I was sitting in the tiny security room, watching the grainy feeds from the surveillance cameras. Most screens showed nothing but empty aisles. Suddenly, one of the monitors flickered, and I noticed movement in aisle 14. It was quick, like a shadow darting across the screen. My stomach tightened. I rewound the footage, but there was nothing. Probably just a glitch, I told myself. These cameras were ancient, and technical hiccups were common. Still, the unease lingered. I decided to shake it off by doing my rounds early. Grabbing my flashlight, I stepped into the cavernous space. The beam of light cut through the darkness, casting long shadows that danced with every step I took. The echo of my boots on the concrete floor seemed unnaturally loud. As I walked past aisle 14, I paused. The air felt colder here, almost oppressive. But there was nothing, just rows of boxes, all neatly stacked. I was about to move on when I heard it, a faint rustling, like someone shifting through the boxes. My heart jumped into my throat. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. I swung the flashlight beam around, but all I could see were more shadows and stacks of boxes. Then I noticed something odd. One of the boxes on the top shelf was slightly ajar. It wasn't like that before. I was sure of it. I stepped closer, shining my flashlight upward. Suddenly there was a loud thud as the box fell, crashing to the ground a few feet away from me. I froze. The contents, random office supplies, spilled out, but there was no sign of what caused it to fall. My breath came in shallow gasps as I backed away, nearly tripping over my own feet. Back in the security room, I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence. But as I reviewed the footage, my blood ran cold. The camera had caught it. The box didn't just fall. It was pushed. A dark shape, vaguely human, seemed to shove it off the shelf before vanishing into thin air. I should have reported it. I should have left. But part of me didn't want to look like a coward on my first week. So, I stayed. Big mistake. The rest of the shift was uneventful until about 4 a.m. That's when the power went out. The entire warehouse plunged into darkness, save for the faint emergency lights. The hum of the machines stopped, replaced by an almost deafening silence. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking. As I stepped out to investigate, I heard it again, the rustling. Only this time it wasn't faint. It was loud, deliberate, and coming from deeper in the warehouse. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The sound stopped. For a moment there was only silence. Then, from the far end of the aisle, I saw it. A figure. It was just standing there, shrouded in shadow. My flashlight flickered as I pointed it in their direction, but the beam seemed to dim the closer it got to them. "Security, you're not supposed to be here," I yelled, but my voice cracked. The figure didn't move. It didn't say anything. And then, It started walking toward me, slow, deliberate steps that echoed through the empty space. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest. My flashlight flickered again, and when the beam steadied, the figure was gone. Just vanished. That's when I ran. I sprinted back to the security room, slammed the door shut, and locked it. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pressed my back against the cold metal. The power came back on a few minutes later, but I didn't leave the security room until my shift ended. When the morning crew arrived, I handed in my resignation on the spot. I never thought working the night shift at a 24-hour gas station could be dangerous. Boring. Yes. Lonely. Definitely. But dangerous. Not until the night I realized someone had been watching me. I had just started this job to save up some money. It wasn't glamorous, but the hours were quiet, and my duties were simple. Restock shelves, handle the register, and keep an eye on the security cameras. The station was located on a desolate stretch of highway, with few cars stopping by after midnight. It started as a normal shift. Around 1 a.m., I was alone in the store, sipping coffee to stay awake, when I noticed a car pull into the lot. It was an old, beat-up sedan. The driver didn't get out. Instead, they just sat there, headlights glaring through the glass windows. At first, I thought maybe they were just checking directions or waiting for someone. But after 10 minutes, it started to feel off. I tried to act casual, tidying up around the counter, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The driver's silhouette was barely visible, but I could feel their eyes on me. Finally, I decided to make a move. I stepped out from behind the counter, walking toward the window, and gave a polite wave. No response. They just sat there. Uneasy, I went back to the counter and checked the security cameras. The car was still there, the engine idling. I debated calling the police, but what would I say? Someone was sitting in a car. That wasn't illegal. After another 5 minutes, the car finally pulled out of the lot and drove off. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. But my relief was short-lived. About 20 minutes later, as I was restocking the drink coolers in the back, I heard the chime of the doorbell. Someone had entered the store. "Welcome," I called out, trying to sound cheerful. But when I stepped out from the cooler, the store was empty. The door was swinging shut, and the breeze carried the faint smell of cigarettes. Whoever had come in wasn't there anymore. I checked the security footage. The grainy video showed a man in a hoodie entering the store. He stood just inside the doorway for a moment before stepping back out and disappearing around the corner. My skin crawled. Why would someone do that? The next hour was tense. I kept glancing out the windows and checking the cameras, but nothing seemed out of place. Just as I started convincing myself I was overreacting, the power went out. The store plunged into darkness, save for the dim emergency lights. The hum of the coolers and fluorescent lights vanished, leaving an oppressive silence. My heart raced as I fumbled for the flashlight under the counter. I was just about to call my manager when I heard it. A faint tapping sound from the storage room. I froze. The storage room was at the back of the building, and the door had been locked when I started my shift. Slowly, I crept toward the sound, my flashlight shaking in my hand. As I got closer, the tapping grew louder, more insistent. It sounded like someone was knocking on the inside of the door. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice trembling. No answer. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I unlocked the door and yanked it open, shining my flashlight inside. Nothing. The room was empty, just shelves of supplies and cleaning products. I stood there, my breath coming in short gasps, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. That's when I noticed the back door. It was ajar, the lock broken. Panic set in. Someone had been inside the building. Someone was messing with me. I locked the door as best as I could and ran back to the counter to call the police. As I reached for the phone, my eyes caught movement on the security monitor. The man in the hoodie was back. He was standing in the middle of the gas station lot, staring straight at the camera. His face was obscured by the hood, but his posture was unnerving, completely still, except for the slight tilt of his head, like he was watching me. The dispatcher's voice crackled on the line as I stammered out what was happening. They assured me an officer was on the way. I kept my eyes on the monitor, but the man didn't move. He just stood there, like he was waiting for something. Then, the camera feed cut out. My stomach dropped as I realized I couldn't see him anymore. The windows felt like they were closing in on me. I grabbed a wrench from under the counter, my only means of defense, and backed into the corner, keeping my eyes on the front door. Minutes felt like hours until I saw flashing red and blue lights outside. The police arrived, and just like that, the tension broke. They searched the lot and the surrounding area, but found no one. The man was gone. When they reviewed the footage, they found something even more chilling. Before the camera feed cut out, the man in the hoodie had walked toward the store. But instead of entering, he had crouched just out of view by the front door. He had been waiting for me to come outside. I quit the job the next morning. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching, waiting for his next opportunity. I worked the night shift at a small hotel in a quiet town. It was the kind of place where nothing much happened, mostly truckers stopping for a rest, or the occasional traveler too tired to keep driving. I liked the solitude and the simplicity of the job. It gave me time to think and catch up on reading. But one night, I experienced something that still haunts me. It was late November, and the cold wind howled outside as I sat at the front desk, scrolling through my phone. The lobby was empty, and the silence was broken only by the soft hum of the vending machine and the occasional creak of the old building settling. We had only 3 guests checked in, and all of them had retired to their rooms hours earlier. Around 2 a.m., the phone at the front desk rang. The sharp noise startled me, because it was rare for anyone to call that late. I picked it up, expecting it to be one of the guests, but there was only static on the line. "Hello," I said, trying to sound professional. No response, just the faint crackle of static. Then I heard it. A soft, raspy voice whispered, "Help me." My heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. But the line went dead. I tried to tell myself it was just a prank call. Maybe someone had accidentally dialed the hotel, but deep down, something about it felt wrong. A few minutes later, the lobby phone rang again. I hesitated before picking it up. "Hello?" I asked, gripping the receiver tightly. This time there was no static, just silence. I was about to hang up when I heard faint breathing on the other end. "If this is a joke, it's not funny," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. But the line clicked off again. I decided to check the call log. The calls had come from one of the rooms, room 209. My stomach twisted. That room was supposed to be empty. I double-checked the system, and sure enough, no one had checked into 209 that night. Gathering my courage, I grabbed the master key and made my way down the dimly lit hallway toward room 209. The carpet muffled my footsteps, but my heart was pounding so loudly I was sure anyone nearby could hear it. When I reached the door, I hesitated. What if someone had broken in? I took a deep breath and knocked. "Hello? Is anyone in there?" No answer. I slid the key into the lock and opened the door slowly. The room was dark, the curtains drawn, and everything seemed undisturbed. The bed was made, the bathroom door was open, and the air smelled faintly of cleaning supplies. I turned on the